Go kids, you guys are dismissed. I gotta walk up slow, man. Every once in a while I walk up and there's still another song and I'm like, oh, I gotta leave. Should know the order of service, right?
Gotta do the right one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, man, I'm still with Mikey. That communion meditation, Justin, dang, that was great. I'll give you the whole service, man. Always good to see you guys. I love you. Hope that you're doing well. Hope that your Christmas season is what you expected. Again, I'm okay with the tension I've been struggling through of looking for what's more, looking a little deeper, and not being satisfied with the status quo. And I've been grateful for my journey a little bit, and so I want to share more of that with you, and more ways than one. So the series, Searching for Christmas, has got me and hopefully you asking some questions about what it really means and why do we celebrate what we celebrate, and maybe that we're missing part of it and not celebrating all that we could, and maybe we could celebrate it in different ways than we have before. And so what I've been doing is we kind of looked at some of the text that opened up the story of Jesus. Luckily, we have those 4 Gospels, and so we get to see a little bit about different perspectives that would kind of show us what that looks like. And so what I wanted to do was kind of jump a little bit forward in the book of Matthew chapter 2. And some of that's going to be on the screen here in just a minute. And I want you to look at these characters, the wise men. And I honestly know very little about them, and part of that's because the text shows us very little about the wise men. There's a couple things that we know, but I just kind of want to look at them a little closer and see why they are in the story, what role they play in the story, and how that might give us some answers about the searching for Christmas thing. So Clinton, if you'll put that up on the screen for us, the text in Matthew. This is Matthew 2, verses 1 through 2 at first. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it was rose and had come to worship him." And I kind of put a couple dots. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is verses 9 and 10. I skipped the middle section because that middle section in chapter 2 is a conversation with King Herod, and he's an interesting guy, and I could spend a lot of time talking about him, but I want to focus on the 3 wise men because there's something to it. And so jumping into verse 9, after they heard of the king and talked to him, they went on their way, and the star that they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming in the house, they saw the child with the mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. And just kind of let that sit up there, if you don't mind, Clinton. And I highlighted a key word. You saw that? That's interesting to me. I think, especially if I were to try and transport these guys into modern day life, and these wise men, and I'm not even sure where they get that title from. I don't know if because we know they had wealth to give these gifts to the baby, that they had possessions, and so maybe their title wise men came because they had things. I'm not sure. I would be curious if it comes from the fact that they followed a star to find a baby. Because again, culturally, that's just not a thing. I mean, people study astrology and we look to the stars, but in a very different way than they did. But it's still a thing, and people still look for guidance right now from the way the stars are aligning and what they see, and that would give them direction in life. But I would wonder what people would have thought as they were traveling and being led by a star, if people made comments. And so what does this wise title come from? What does that look like? And to be honest with you, I'm not completely sure, but what really gets my attention is kind of the fact that this is their story, and it ends with that they worship Jesus, they follow the star, they brought the gifts, and we move on to other characters. And there's got to be so much to that journey for them. There's got to be so much to their story and what that looks like. And how they've been on this trip to find this baby, and I wish I could have seen what that journey would be like, and then I started thinking about that journey, and that's what I want to talk about. What I want to do is I want to read to you 2 stories about a similar journey and the way I see it. And I think they were on a journey. They were on an adventure. They must have had all different kinds of thoughts, and I don't know all that they would have been thinking through, but I know some other people on different journeys, and maybe there's some similarities, and maybe some similarities with your own. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about some different people, and maybe they're wise, maybe they're not. I'll let you kind of decide, but to look at what journeys can be like in life, and what those things show us about ourselves, and why that's important, and why their trip mattered. The first story, this is a lady. She was born in 1910. Her name's Maria. And she had a very powerful family to where anytime she got together and she would talk to her mom and she wanted to know why there was all these men and women around her table. And her mom said, well, some of them are our relatives, but all of them are our people. And she would talk to her mom, and her mom would say, never eat a single mouthful unless you're sharing it with other people. And so this young girl, Maria, kind of had a different upbringing where she was taught at a very young age that it's important to share what you have. And so she pursued many things in life, but at age 13, she felt called to be a nun, to pursue ministry in that capacity. And by age 18, she had left Albania, traveled to Dublin to study to be a sister in many distant places from her family. At age 18, she was given permission to join a group of nuns in Ireland. After a few months of training with the sisters there, she was given permission to now travel to India. And she took her vows and what she was taught. And in 1931, she kind of made a commitment to do ministry with people in Calcutta. And she was overwhelmed by the needs of these people. And what we come to find out for this young lady is seeing people dying and seeing how neglected lives had become in different places of the world. She was overwhelmed by this and felt led to do something about it. And so she knew Jesus, and she remembers that he would say things like, whoever does the least for my brethren does so for me as well. She was convicted. She was conflicted by this idea that people matter no matter what their situation. And she made her whole life about that. And so she's quoted as saying, love cannot remain by itself. It has no meaning in that. Love has to be put into action, and action into service. Her work had spread around the world, and so by now, 2013, there were 700 missions operating in 130 countries to scope to continue this endeavor that she had focused on. And specifically, she would care for those that were in need, those that were dying, those that were without. And so she would open up different homes for those that were dying so that they would die in peace. They would die with comfort. In 1952, she opened up the first home for the dying, which allowed people to die with dignity. Mother Maria Teresa, often spent time with those that were dying and cared about their critical condition. And so she wanted to make sure that people had the opportunity to die knowing that someone cared. And so again, she became famous for this effort to love people. And she was guided in a very different adventure in her life. And then this is cool, in 1979, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for undertaking this great endeavor to overcome poverty and care for people that are without. And as they wanted to celebrate her with this great banquet and celebration for the Nobel Peace Prize, they had $192 set aside for this thing. And she said, just quit with the conference and give all that money to the poor. And so she did something powerful in her life, and she's quoted as saying, the hunger for love, this is crazy. As she did ministry in different places and wanted to serve people in Dubai and in India, and she got to have influence in the western parts of the world, and as she journeyed around and saw different things, she said this. She said, the hunger for love is much more difficult to remove than the hunger for bread. And so she was overwhelmed with the initial thought that people need food and people need to die well. And she was overwhelmed by the fact that, especially when she visited the western parts of the world, that people were more desperate for love than they are for food. She said this, it is not how much we do, but how much love we put into the doing. It is not how much we give, but how much love we put into the giving. And that's just kind of a little bit about her story, Mother Teresa. And I don't know all of the details. We could be here for a while talking about her theological differences. We could talk about her commitments, her struggles, the difficulties that she went through. But I just know there's a start, and there's a young girl that felt like Jesus was speaking into her life. And she said yes. And she traveled all over the world and was open to different things, and now kind of put herself in context to serve people that no one else wanted to, because she felt Jesus had led her to do that. And around the world, people would continue and still do to celebrate what great ministry that would be. And different organizations still exist because she cared for people that were less than and people that were without. And so there's something very special about the life that she lived to choose to do that. And so, give or take, those are the details that I know. I know where she ended. I know that there was a journey in the middle there, and it doesn't always make sense. And I don't know because I wasn't there, but that says a lot about the fact that, man, sometimes in life still, and many people around the world, they are being led by a star. Now, maybe not necessarily a star that's in the sky, but by something more than that. Not necessarily by the sun that lights the world, but a sun that wore flesh and blood and lived in front of you. That she was led by something a little bit different than just the stars you would think of, but that she had a voice whisper into her heart, man, love people. And that's a journey. That's a life well lived. And so this journey says a lot. It says that what your parents teach you when you're little, that will matter as you get older. It says to me that sometimes you got to be willing to go places you never thought you would ever go for the sake of people that need your help. This says a lot about how you might have expectations from other people in the way that you love. And that it would be more beneficial for you, Mother Teresa, to love people in the western parts of the world that have more finances and more resources and more this and more that. And she discovered they're a little bit harder and more difficult than the poverty that I find in India. That she was overwhelmed by what she saw. And so the journey continues to be radical and different. And she's one story, and I tell you that because it connects here to this second one. This is Jackie Pullinger. And Jackie, she, very much like Mother Teresa, she had a heart for ministry. And so she grew up and she wanted to be a missionary. And she knew that she wanted to do it a little bit different, and she wasn't sure what it would look like. She had a vision, she had a dream that she should do ministry in Hong Kong, and didn't really know what to make of that, and wasn't sure what to do. She applied to every missionary group that she could think of, to all the church organizations and anything around Hong Kong or the Hong Kong government. But all the doors were closed in her face. She was too young. She was too inexperienced. She had all the wrong qualifications, she was told. And then this is interesting. In her story, kind of the lack of wisdom, she had someone tell her, just pack your bags, just take what you have and just go. Just get on a boat and do this. With very little preparation and put together, she did. And Jackie left, gathered up all of her money that she had. She bought a passage on the cheapest boat to Hong Kong she could find. And she only had enough money for a one-way ticket. And so there was no turning back for her. And she almost didn't make it past Hong Kong's immigrations because of the way things were set up. And so she got a job as a school teacher in the walled city in Hong Kong. And she said that it seemed insane, and that sometimes giving up everything you have to go to one of the most dangerous places in the world to show Jesus' love to criminals, prostitutes, and drug addicts, you might have to pitch for more than 6 months or a couple years, but go for your entire life. And so she knew there would be more to it. And in 1966, it was far worse in the walled city in Hong Kong. And many of the people living there, they were scratching a living by slaving in sweatshops and under appalling conditions. People would become prostitutes or sold into drugs, and all of them feared living in this infamous triad gang circle who had overthrown the walled city. Many of the gang members were just teenagers, and outside of their primary school job, they were taught music from Jackie and things in the school, but she started to see that there was an opportunity to bring Jesus into this audacious mission, to this dangerous, dangerous place. And so she set up a youth group, a youth club, she called it. Many of the boys who came in were members of the Triad Gang. And to begin with, the people of the walled city were skeptical, because usually when missionaries would come with lots of money and nice clothes and preach and help for a while before they went back home to the West. But many people simply couldn't believe that Jackie had no money and wasn't going anywhere. And that left a mark. Eventually, she gained the trust of the young men, and they began to believe that she was there to stay, and that she meant what she said. She really did care for them, and she began to see the boys coming to know Jesus one by one. Many of them were addicts. Opium and heroin were a big issue, and so that was something that she would focus on, helping them get past and through. And despite the power of heroin, the boys weren't only kicking their habit, they were leaving it behind completely. They put it down to their commitment to Jesus. Many addicts who prayed for Jesus' help found themselves freed of their addiction without going through any kind of withdrawal. Jackie opened a home for those who needed help, and soon found that she was overwhelmed with opportunity, and she found places to stay. Not all the addicts reformed immediately. Jackie started to realize that becoming Christians didn't automatically mean that you heal you from your addictions or immediately reform you after a lifetime in the underworld. But the signs were good. Things were moving forward. So Jackie continued her work there. This is interesting. Jackie's effort to show and tell of love of Jesus eventually had an amazing degree of success and impact. As she won the trust and the approval of groups of people around there, the Triad Gang specifically, after this youth club was destroyed one bad evening by some vandals one night, a Triad boss sent a guard to watch the building to make sure it never happened again. The same gang boss later arranged a meeting to meet with Jackie. He told her that he didn't want his gang members to be addicts anymore, and that she did as well. That she had succeeded where he had failed, and therefore he would support her and help her to get more men off drugs. Jackie's response was uncompromising. She told him simply that she wouldn't just help the boys escape their addiction purely for them to be better gang members, but that she would tell them about Jesus and they had to leave the gang because he's the only king they're supposed to have. To her astonishment, the gang boss still offered the guard
to help guard the house. And so she could continue to pour her life into these young men and to continue the kingdom of God and grow Christians. And as Jackie's work grew, she found herself able to open up a second home and a third. And Jackie helped a couple of American missionaries and continued to set up the Stephen Society that has become the most successful drug rehabilitation program in the world, rescuing hundreds of people from a lifetime of misery on the streets. She was quoted as saying, "I went up to a man and said, 'Jesus loves you,' but I realized that it didn't mean anything unless I did it first." I kind of know where her story started. I kind of see where it's ending. And there's a lot that happens in the middle there. I wish I could have her here to tell you about the good days and the bad days and all the people that said she couldn't do it when she went to be a missionary, all the way God opened up doors and all the years in between and the good days and the bad days. And I believe in one way or another, Jackie was led by a star. Now again, maybe not a star that you would see in the sky at night, but maybe a star that would wear flesh and blood and live among people and tell her that those are my people too. And that even though it might look dangerous, I've called you into something more. And so she listened to that calling. And so maybe these are the kind of definitions of what it means to be wise. I don't know. But the fact that these people are willing to follow Jesus no matter what says something to me that I needed to hear and I want you to know about. If there's something I want to tell you about Christmas this Sunday, it's that there is a big old journey that you're right in the middle of. You might know, and we know a little bit about where our story starts, but we don't know where this thing ends. I know for me, I had a friend, and he loved Jesus, and he took me to church, and I met Jesus, and I knew I couldn't say no. If all that was true, if he did all that Jesus said he did for me, and it was all real, then I had to give my life to that. And I did, and I left LAX, California, right? There's this huge airport, and flew to this tiny little Joplin International Airport, probably the size of this auditorium, and thought, what on earth am I doing? And I was being led, and I didn't know what was coming next. I just knew I wanted to follow Jesus, and I went to one of the best schools, in my opinion, and was educated, and continued to follow him wherever he would lead me. And he led me to Spring Hill. I met my wife in Missouri and followed her here, and CCW is an instrumental part of my life, and this step with Go Church has been even more so. And I just know one thing, just like them, just like these ladies, I've been led by something. And it just continues to work like that. And I don't know how it works. And like the wise men, I like to know what happened in those, give or take 2 years to get to this baby. But we don't get to know that part. The history tells us that they started and that they ended and they worshiped Jesus. And I don't know all that happened to Mother Teresa and all the things that I would agree about what she did and some of the things I probably wouldn't agree with, but I know that she was led by something more than I am. I know she gave her life for people that the whole world remembers now. I know there was a journey in the middle, and she had some days where she didn't think it was ever going to work. And she had people tell her that she should wait, and she had people tell her that she shouldn't do it, but she listened anyway, and she was led. And she followed. And to places that she never thought she would have been, she went. And I think about Jackie. I think about a life where she thought that I knew I need to follow the star. I know God's leading my life, and it seems crazy to me that I'm supposed to go over here and to this crazy group of people, and this is going to be really, really hard work, and she gave her whole life to it. And now we get to see some of the repercussions of that. And so there is something very powerful about a life dedicated to the stars, one that follows the plan that the King has set forth. And don't miss the fact that these wise men weren't just looking to the stars as an astrologist would so that they would give us a sign. It isn't just some mark in the sky or a miracle that happens. There's a person that wore it. A person that showed us the way. And so you and I, we follow something more than a Christmas gift. This isn't just about a way that we can find wisdom in the text of Christmas morning and how this matters for December. This is for your whole entire life. You have been led by a person. This is a gift that doesn't just stay in your home on December 26th. This isn't just something that you open that makes you feel good in that moment. This guides you for your entire life. And so you, I think, like the wise men, you have a start and you have an end to your story. And you have a whole lot that happens in the middle of it. And I would love to know a little bit more about what makes them wise and why they did what they did and their willingness to give these great gifts and for their obedience to the calling. And I don't always know what that looks like. I believe in glory in heaven. I'm going to get to talk to them about their adventure. I talk to a lot of different people about what that looks like because there's good days and there's bad days. And I go through that too. There's days where it is difficult to see the star in the sky. There's days that it becomes harder to know what step you're supposed to take. It doesn't always seem very clear to us, and we only get the one right in front of us, it seems. I've been praying a lot about this church and what we do in the next 5 years and been reading books about it and studying it and thinking it through. And as much as I want God to clearly show me so I could have this really cool slide or this banner and say, here's the future of the church and this is what we're going to do. And I wish so badly that I could do that. He didn't give me that. He just said, here's the next step. And I'm gonna continue doing that because it seems like if I just continue to follow the path that He set me on, I have no idea what it's going to look like in 10 years, but I know I'm going to follow Him wherever He leads it because it's going to be good either way you go. And so sometimes the path is difficult, sometimes it's unclear, sometimes it doesn't reveal itself for years later, and sometimes you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. But I guarantee you this, and this is the best gift you'll ever open, if you listen to His leading in your life and you follow the stars. And not just because there's some that hover above the earth, but because there's a man that took that name and changed it and redefined what the sun even is. And He came for you and said, come follow me, I've got a life for you. And I want to follow that every chance I get. And I think that might be even bigger than Christmas morning. Because it wasn't just about the fact that that kid was born and that kid died. There's a lot of stuff that happened in the middle there. There's a life that we get to be a part of. You get to benefit from Jesus not just because He was born and because He died, but because He showed you the way to live in the years in between. So live those years as well as you possibly can live them. Because I know where your story starts, and you don't get to control that. But I know where my story and I know where your story is going to end if you continue to follow. And it will be better than you expected. It will be more than you can contain. It will be a love that is greater and more than you can contain. Follow Him wherever He leads you, no matter what. You follow Him wherever He leads you. And enjoy the ride because you're not promised tomorrow. Enjoy every opportunity you get because people will tell your story. And they might miss some of the hard days in the middle, and they might get all the details a little bit off. But live your life well and give it to Him and watch what He does. And that maybe someday people will talk about your story too because you gave your life to Him. And maybe we can be among the wise men and women. Maybe you would be counted as one of the wise that follow the stars to wherever He leads you because I want to go to that place and I want to follow Him wherever He takes us. And so I'm excited for that gift and that journey with you guys. And so that's a couple of stories. And I gave you a little bit of mine, and there's a lot of really, really good ones sitting in this room right now. And all the chapters in between, guys, the good ones and the bad ones, remember He's leading it somewhere very, very special. So I want to pray and thank you for the fact that He is leading us, that there is purpose to your story. I want to pray and thank Him that He would give us direction, that we're not just aimlessly kind of working our way through December, but that you and I have purpose that's more than just getting it to that tree on December 25th. We've got more to it, and I'm so thankful that He gave us more. I'm thankful for His Son, and that it means more than just Christmas is a special day, but that our whole life is a journey worth taking. Let's pray and thank Him for what He's given us. I love you so much. It would be nice to know what tomorrow looks like, but I also know that odds are if you told us what our whole life was going to look like, we wouldn't step a foot outside. I know that you know us and you know what we can handle. And maybe it's pride for me to think that we can handle knowing what a year from now looks like. I don't know, but you have proven yourself to be consistent. Even when everything else in the world that I can think of is unfaithful and untrustworthy, you are constant. You are a guiding light that never goes out. And I get why they would want to follow you. I get why many have before, and I understand why I'm doing it now, because you are worth all of our trust. You will never lead us astray. Even when it seems difficult, even when everything else around us might be shaky and uncertain, you are constant and you are so good. And you have given us a future that is beyond what we can comprehend. And so I pray, Father, please help us to go where you lead. Help us to live the life that you told us to live. Rain or shine, unclear or clear, good days and bad days, wherever you tell us to go, God, that we will go and make disciples of all nations as you called us to do, God. Thank you for the gifts you've given us along the way. Thank you for the journey in the meantime. Thank you for the stories that we tell, the good and the bad, of how we followed you to the very end. You're worth it, and we will follow you wherever you take us, God. Thank you for the trip. Thank you for today. Help us to enjoy every moment we've got, because we get to be with you, and it doesn't get much better than that. I love you, Father. I thank you so much. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.